I've been with the Mesh for about a year. I'm going to talk about South Brooklyn and specifically a new hub that we've got going on down there. So I haven't given a presentation in like 10 or 11 months. So I do installs, support, project management, networking, communications, a lot of different things. My focus areas that I've been working on a lot more recently, I've been working a lot on rain backups for hubs. So everybody knows that with the Mesh, sometimes when it rains very hard, the internet goes down. I've been trying to keep that from happening. So in most parts of Brooklyn now, it doesn't go down, it just gets a little slower. I've been working on fixing a lot of crowded sectors, trying to find smaller hubs or redistribute connections so that everybody has a little bit smoother experience. Physical topology, so essentially trying to find better ways to link hubs together. And then just overall processes, inventory support, little things like that, just to help us run smoother. As Marg mentioned, there's a lot of administrative overhead and not a lot of volunteers who really like doing it. And I don't blame them because it's not a lot of fun. So the easier that we can make it, I think the easier this will get. I personally joined the Mesh because I just really think that internet is for everybody. I don't think that we should be paying for-profit companies for internet or, you know, like water and electricity and things like that, but that's a topic for another day. Okay, so currently the challenge that we have in the south of Brooklyn, right, is we don't have a lot of presence down there, and the geography is somewhat challenging. So on the left there, you can see we have the Sunset Park Hub and we have the Sunset Park Library, which are great buildings. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trees and it's kind of on a hill, and they're on the wrong side of the hill, so there's not really much visibility as we start looking south. Flatbush Cats has been set up more recently. It's a good hub, it's just not very tall. Right, so it's a little challenging for us, even if we can find a good building as we start looking south, to be able to get it connected short of a fiber lease, which can be very, very expensive. There is a Link NYC fiber pilot coming online soon at the Flatbush Cats hub, so we're going to have a fiber uplink there, but we need to figure out a way to get it to the rest of the neighborhood. So what John and I have discovered, we had a guy come to us in Borough Park. Now what I would say is Borough Park does not have a lot of demand for internet because of the culture there. However, this building is really, really great. It's 6 stories. It's got another 2 to the bulkhead. You can kind of see in my picture here, it's a little grainy, but the building itself is 6, and then there's 2 more stories up to the very top of that elevator bulkhead. It can clearly see the Sunset Park Hub, it can see Flatbush Cats, and it can also actually see Prospect Heights Hub all the way on the north end of Prospect Park, which is quite far away. Around the building, it has about 315 degrees of line of sight to everything around it for a couple of kilometers. There's a hospital behind it. It's actually this little building right here, but it only blocks a very small portion. The building is pre-wired for Cat 6 to the roof. Unfortunately, as we discovered, it is not pre-wired for Ethernet into the apartments, but it does have coax, which they're not planning on using. So we're going to do MoCA. And for those of you unfamiliar with that, MoCA is a way to send Ethernet over RG6 at a relatively low cost to provide in-unit connectivity. The reason that the building manager came to us is because he doesn't have any other internet service. Verizon had run some conduit, but is very, very delayed in installing service, and he can't get his certificate of occupancy, and he has people that want to move in. So we quickly put up an install with a Lightbeam and an Omni, took a lot of pictures and did some planning. We have a commitment from him for the 5 HPD units, so the affordable housing program there, and there's 9 more units available in the building. So our plan is to hook those 5 up, but also build a hub out. This is just, it's kind of hard to see because of where you are, but you can see Sunset Park up here, Prospect Heights, over there somewhere is Flatbush Cats, I promise, but again, it's kind of grainy from here, but I will share it more broadly. It can see pretty much every rooftop in the vicinity until you hit the hospital over here. So even if we don't have a lot of people close by that want to get hooked up, this could be a great relay to other neighborhoods down to the south with really, really clear line of sight. The building costs overall, for those of you who haven't really seen what a hub costs, this is actually pretty standard for us to put some equipment on the roof. So the network rack, which we would put in a indoor portion on the 7th floor with a router, some power and cables, is about $1,500 of cost to us. The roof masts, to put a couple of non-penetrating masts on the roof because they don't want us to do much drilling, and other outdoor equipment and switches, is going to be about $2,500. And then tools and miscellaneous parts. John really did all the work on this of putting the bill of materials together because he's way more experienced with this than I am. Inside the building, this is really where we're going to probably get most of our money back, if not all of it. Very, very low fixed costs. We really just need a switch in the basement and a couple of Mocha adapters. And then in unit, it's only going to cost us about $100 per apartment for a Mocha adapter and a router, right? And if our standard install fee is $240, we're certainly going to get. So we're going to be able to recover most of this cost to this hub without really having to do much of an input here. The existing commitment there of $1,200, and then obviously if we can get some of the other apartments hooked up, then we get closer to breaking even here. And then of course, as we hook up more people in the neighborhood, we recover those costs. Very, very related to what Andrew was talking about, where we pay for the hub up front and then we make it up in the long run. You can see here, John standing up on a ladder with some wires coming out of the roof, and then in the basement, the wires that come in there, as well as a ton of coax that's just lying loose that we can reuse. For antenna selection and routing, from a Sunset Park perspective, it's going to be the primary link until Flatbush Cat's Link NYC fiber is live. It's only about 1 kilometer away, which makes it a good candidate for 60 gigahertz. For those of you that aren't as familiar with the antenna technology, 60 gigahertz is very high capacity. We can get 1 to 2 gigabit out of it. It just is much more sensitive to the rain, but at 1 kilometer, it's going to be really, really solid. Currently, we have that 5 gigahertz light beam. We'll probably just do another 5 gigahertz point-to-point, but we have to do a little bit more work at the Sunset Park hub because it is pretty much maxed out on equipment right now. We need to do some upgrades to get more power onto the roof. At Flatbush Cats, Daniel and Leiden have been doing a lot of work. As soon as that Link NYC fiber is online, we're going to make that the primary. Now, it's 4 kilometers away, which makes it not really a good candidate for 60 gigahertz. However, Daniel and I have been discussing 6 gigahertz point-to-point equipment. This is kind of new. It just, I think like a month ago, the FCC finally de-licensed it. So these antennas, I don't even know what the capacity is. It's close to 1 gigabit. And we want to pilot it here as well as another couple of buildings up north in Brooklyn. For routing and switching to keep costs low, we're going to go with a relatively low-cost indoor router that does allow us to get gig routing. We'll put an S16, a big switch on the roof. We prefer that because, again, we're going to be doing 2 non-penetrating stands, so we don't have an unlimited amount of space to put power boxes and all the other crap that we would normally put on top of a hub. So we're trying to keep this relatively straightforward. In the basement, we need a $50 switch and a couple of Mocha adapters. So this should be pretty easy to do once we can get going. What we get from this, I think, as I mentioned, although demand is low only in that neighborhood, it's really going to be an excellent relay. It would open up, I think, parts of Kensington, which has had a lot of sign-up requests. If you pull, I'll pull the map up in a moment and you can see we don't really have anywhere for them to connect right now, right? So we can open up a lot of that, as well as north of this hub, there have been a lot of requests. And then obviously as we look towards Midwood and Mapleton and Bensonhurst, right? Those are areas that we just can't serve right now, and this would open a lot of that up. And just other alternatives. The other big one that we want to do, this Link NYC partnership that we have, it was discussed a couple of months ago in a meeting. They're pretty much giving us for free a fiber line or a fiber connection at high speed as a part of a pilot, with the expectation that we sort of help them extend their network out. And that's where we think that this is really going to benefit it, is we can pull more hubs and local people onto that, and then they're kind of getting onto the internet together with NYC Mesh and Link NYC. So for us, really what's next is to submit the BOM for board approval. I'd like to talk to the guy about an access agreement for the roof. mostly just so that if in 6 months he changes his mind, he can't kick us off and tear all of our equipment down. They're going to get their certificate of occupancy, and then we're going to build it out. Like I said, John was a big help. I'm just going to pull up the map, though, so we can see what I'm talking about, if this doesn't kill us. So as we look at that neighborhood down here, and for those of you who haven't really messed with this map too much, there's a couple of clever little filters you can do up here. You can turn off sectors to get rid of all that blue, because it's not actually real, it's just a, and then if we look at potential, you can see, especially here in Kensington and Prospect Park South, and certainly around Flatbush Cats, there's quite a few installs that have been requested. Borough Park is quite light, but north of it here is quite heavy. There's a lot of trees right here. We have a sector antenna on top of the Sunset Park hub, but it can't see very much. Thankfully, it can see this hub, right, at Borough Park, but it can't see much else. So we think that this is a really, really good roof, mostly just because it can see everything around it. I don't expect it's going to grow super quick, but I think it's going to open up a lot of the areas around us. It doesn't take much of a capital investment, and this is honestly like a 2-day build out because it's not a whole lot of equipment. So that's where we are.
Can I just ask a question?
Say again?
Where's the other mic?
They've got it. Any questions?
So, I live in the neighborhood.
Oh, cool.
And where we are, Flatbush Cats is...
The Flatbush Cats is over here.
So what's this right here?
That is a new install we've got down here at 639. I don't know who that is.
Because I know that there are...
It's a balcony of a really tall building.
Yeah.
There's 3 really tall buildings on Flatbush right there that are really, really, really high. So it struck me if you could jump to them from Flatbush Cats, you could probably hit the whole of Marine Park and south of there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. If we could get more onto this building over here and get it a good uplink. Again, I mean, if we zoom out, right, we can see we just have nothing down to the south, right, other than one VPN node. It got rid of my filters, but right, there's a smattering of requests down here, but it's not something that's been, a ton of demand, but there's no reason that we can't push further south. Again, the consistent challenge for us is really line of sight. These guys have been doing a great job up in Harlem of building this infrastructure, and this is another great area to do. And then once we can get some of that Presbyterian Hospital, we can start doing Queens as well. So, I mean, this is to me, it's a good low-cost way to get into these neighborhoods, because the alternative is to get a full building to get hooked up and commit 100 apartments so that we can make a fiber lease affordable. But that brings a lot of operational cost to us. So, the advantage of doing a hub like this is it's just really just one-time spend, and then we just got to support it.
So you mentioned this guy's talking to us because, he can't get connected through a traditional provider. That's cool. I'm thinking, is there an opportunity there? Like, should we look to fill this role in other places? One thing Marg was saying earlier is like, we can move really, really fast as compared to these other providers. Like, is there a way we could leverage this to like slide in and eat Spectrum's lunch in other places?
Love it. We just got to find out who's got access to the Verizon backlog. So this guy's been interested in the mesh for a while. He lives like up here, and I don't think he's got line of sight. But he also has another building up here that we've discussed as well. So we may see if we can get a couple of units there hooked up. I mean, this is the sort of grassroots part of getting people hooked up, is just finding somebody that's got a couple of buildings, or, Fletcher over here, same deal, right? A couple of units you've got access to. So lots of opportunity.
I guess just an observation. I think, one, it speaks to we have a pretty good reputation if someone is coming to us for this, and I don't know how to estimate what the value of what we're providing this guy is, and I'm not suggesting that we, turn the screws to extract more value. That's not really my game, but I do think, going down this road, we probably there's probably a lot more opportunity here because, yes, as Andrew observes, he's probably not the only one in this situation, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if we're providing him with $50,000 of value here or something like that. And so it is good to get it in writing that we, have a lease on the roof, but also we probably can put more big antennas on the roof, or, he's probably willing to do us a solid here and whatever the next phase is.
And that's kind of the conversation we had with him, right? Like, he's committed to sign up those 5 units and to donate monthly on behalf of them, right, for us, and then just to help, hook up other people. And the first thing we asked as soon as we saw his building, we're like, can we put stuff on the roof? Because then we'll go as fast as you want, right? So John and I went out there a couple of days later with an antenna and said, you have internet, go get your certificate of occupancy. We're going to come back in a month with a truck full of equipment. So,
Fifth Avenue Committee has some more buildings in Sunset Park if we need rooftops. And another interesting thing, you mentioned MoCA. We looked into it years ago, and there is I guess this is what you found as well. There's a box that will do like 200 apartments.
Yeah, Olivier brought that up. There's some like industrial MoCA distribution things, and it's like, for this building, it didn't make sense because it's like $3,500 for the I don't even know what you call it, like the router. Yeah. Right. For here, we're gonna start with one with a couple of splitters, and we're gonna just see how it goes. If we need to add 2, we go 2x8 instead of 1x16. I know that I've heard that there's 1 or 2 other places that we might have MoCA, but this one's probably kind of new for us. So one clever thing that John came up with in this case is that the MoCA, essentially the thing that's going to distribute MoCA in the basement is actually going to get powered by PoE off that switch, so that if we have an issue with it, we can reset it remotely, right? Because the equipment on the roof will be dedicated power and battery backup. So if the equipment downstairs starts acting up, we'll be able to reset it remotely because we can flip the power on it. Because we're just using, this is just consumer grade, right? It's I think $120 a pair for the MoCA adapters. What you're talking about, that gets into like cable TV, Xfinity, grade distribution, but why not?
Yeah, it's definitely worth it if there's a couple of hundred apartments.
I know for sure. Yeah, you don't want to. I certainly don't think that we should be buying 2,000 of those. Those things are going to burn out. Yeah, if we're going to do, if you're going to do 100 or 200 apartments with MoCA, I think you definitely want something that's like carrier grade, has remote management, where you can see what the signal strength is and everything. This one's going to be pretty light touch. Yeah, it's just, their thing is like the research that we did, there's nothing in between. There's the $70 unit that can push to 15 devices, and there's the $4,000 unit that can push to, 15 times 20 devices.
We did one building with MoCA, just 3 apartments, I think, and we used the Motorola devices. They're only like $20 each.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Andrew's got this in, you're using it at home, and that's why we're going with that one. It's a little pricier. Yeah, I've had the same thing. I did MoCA when I first joined because I didn't want to run a bunch of wires in my apartment, and the $25 ones tend to be hot garbage, and the $60 ones tend to be much, much better. I don't know why. These actually are capable of 2.5 gig. We're not going to have a 2.5 gig uplink, so we're not going to try to put switches in to support it yet, but we could. The one thing I would add is the one challenge with MoCA is unless you get very high-end professional equipment, you don't get client isolation. So the 5 or 6 or 8 people that are hooked up to the one feed device, they're not going to be isolated. They're all going to be behind their own routers, so I'm really not worried about it. But it's just something we got to be aware of in case somebody plugs into a LAN port it could happen. Yeah, there are other, I mean, we could put them all on VLANs. There's a lot of clever ways to do it, but probably not with TP-Link routers. Anybody else? Okay.